So the history of thinking about the universe and matter goes way, way back. So as early as the 5th century BC, a guy named Leucippus, who you've probably never heard of, and another guy named Democritus, recorded their ideas about atoms. Democritus suggested that if you took a piece of matter and you divided it into smaller and smaller pieces, imagine taking, say, a lump of coal and cutting it in half. And then you take one half and you cut it in half. And you take one of those halves and you cut it in half. And you keep doing that. Could you divide it infinitely small? Or would you come down to a smallest particle? Democritus said you would eventually come down to a tiny, indestructible particle. And he gave that thing, the name atomos, or atom, meaning indivisible. So this was the first recorded idea of an atom as being the smallest divisible part of matter. Did these guys have microscopes? No. They were philosophers. They looked at what was around them and they thought about stuff. They didn't do experiments, they didn't make hypotheses, but they sat around and thought about things. Turns out this guy's ideas were correct way, way back, 5th century BC. The ideas that Leucippus and Democritus proposed and recorded were not accepted in their time. In fact, they were not accepted widely until 1808, actually more than 2,000 years later. Some other more famous people had different ideas, and because those guys were more popular, people believed them, and science was sidetracked for a couple thousand years. So, jumping forward to 1808, and again, I'm not going to quiz you or test you on names and dates of history, but I think it's helpful to at least hear about it. John Dalton proposed what's called his atomic theory, and these ideas are important. Each element is composed of tiny indestructible particles that are called atoms. All atoms of a given element have the same mass and other properties that make them different from atoms of other elements. And atoms combine in simple whole number ratios to form compounds. These were big ideas at the time, and they're very important. So there's evidence for the atomic theory. I've shown you a couple of these pictures now. Here's one where scientists at IBM used a scanning tunneling microscope to move some xenon atoms around on a surface to form the letters IBM. You know, because if you're going to mess around with atoms and spell something, okay, let's promote the company, right? I've also seen one where they did it and it says, do your homework. That's a good one, too. The cone shape that we see is because of the instrumentation. Atoms actually are spherical in shape. I think of them as little marbles. I have this imaginary world I call Mrs. K's Chemistry Land. It's kind of like Disneyland, except it's only the happiest place for chemists. Other people think it's kind of a strange place. I'm a visual learner. I have to be able to see things. If not actually see them, I have to be able to imagine a picture of them. So Chemistry Land is where all of these ideas come to life. And in Chemistry Land, atoms look a lot like little marbles.